Hi, welcome to identityweek.net. We're here in Singapore for day 2 of Identity Week Asia. I'm joined now by Transmit Security's CIO, David Mahdi, who's sat with me now. Could you explain why digital identity is so important, for everyone here? We're all joined together here today to discuss digital identity and security. What's all the buzz about identity?
Yeah. I think certainly we've seen the world, go digital, right? Everyone is digital now. Even little, contractors that build patios, they use a lot of digital systems, right? So we've put so much value in our society, governments, work, our personal lives are all in the digital world. And really the way how we can access all these things is by having a digital identity, right? When we think about paying taxes, we don't generally go do that physically anymore. We do that online. And the only way to identify us is with a digital identity. But there are a lot of problems with that because I think we still have one foot in the old paper world, which there's some merit to that. And we're trying to use some of that old process and even old technology to get into this new true digital world, right? And so digital identity is that core critical foundation that's needed in order to enable all of this stuff, from banking to travel, government, citizen and government initiatives, and even fully connected future. It all needs digital identity. And the last thing I'll say there, it's not just for humans, but we also need that for machines, for software, for devices, and all that stuff. So it's critical infrastructure for the digital economy.
And it's a double-edged sword with our technologies. Fraudsters also like our data, the identity systems that they can exploit. Why is that, and how do we make sure we're always ahead of those fraudsters?
Yeah, so I'll start it from this point of view. A long time ago, I was like an attacker, and there wasn't a lot of value online yet. Like what I wanted was software because I wanted to play video games, so that's what got me into it, and I learned a lot that way. But if I had the connectivity that we have now, with all of the valuable stuff online, just the identity data, and then just all the financial transactions, right? If you can crack into someone's account, you can do a lot of fraud, and that could mean a lot of money, right? So I think the financial gain that cyber criminals have, that carrot, as they say, is so big and juicy now because we've put so much online, and we continue to put even more online. And what we see is a lot of organizations, that I think they understand digital identity is important, but they haven't recognized the connection with scams and fraud that they need to start paying attention to. And these are some of these problems we need to solve as well. And then the last piece would be like privacy, right? As you mentioned, data. As we go online and we transact, we're leaving all the digital exhaust, right? So I could look at yours and say, oh, you've been to all these different websites, and do you want people to know that? And so I think there's also a fine line of what's being saved and what's there online. So
you've got a really unique perspective on this because you used to be on the other side of it. We have a reliance on IAM systems, and these systems are built for this time. Are they optimized for organizations, productivity and the workplace?
Yeah. So what I would certainly say about identity systems is that they're built for another time, right? And it's that mention of going from kind of paper to then digital. A lot of these systems were built in the 1990s, right? So very quickly, if you look at the evolution of identity, digital identity, organizations started rolling out applications, right? And you'd have an identity for each one of these applications. When you join an organization, that got very tedious to create a new identity for each app. So then they came out with these directories so that I create one identity for you, and all those systems can synchronize to that. That was built for productivity and for workforce a long time ago. Those systems haven't changed. We've taken those systems and we've tried to just like put them in the cloud, which they don't work well in the cloud, and we can get to that because it means resilience issues. And we've also tried to extend them to customer environments, right? So we have financial institutions that have hundreds of millions of users, and those workforce productivity based identity solutions from the 90s, just they're failing us. And you don't have to really take my word. I mean, you mentioned, my background with the adversary side. And my team at Transmit Security, by the way, they're mostly, they think the way that I do, like just adversary, right? We think about productivity, but we think about breaking things all the time. And the main issue here, if you don't have to take my word, is the number one kind of attack are identity attacks. You look at any major breach, it all ties back to someone stealing someone's credentials or identity information to do an account reset to then get in, right? From a major casino in the United States, that was an account reset, an identity attack, right? To a lot of the major breaches that have happened, that's what attackers are doing. So this has been going on for decades. And if we know the problem is weak identities and these identity systems, it's about time we fix it. And so I think we're headed in that direction now.
Do organizations, though, have this level of knowledge? I mean, they should. We all have a level of knowledge about fraud, but is there knowledge where it should be in terms of implementing solutions, technologies, and fighting those threats?
Yeah, I'll respond this way. If we look last year, I'm not going to name the vendor, but I think the audience probably knows, there was a big technology provider in the identity space, and they got breached several times. And while they would claim they're an identity security company, I say they're not. They're moving in that direction, but they're not. They were based on productivity, as we mentioned. Things like single sign-on, there's some security aspects to it, but it's primarily for productivity, right? They're not an identity security company. That is like foundational, and you can't slap things on. So the market, I think last year it was a wake-up call. A lot of CISOs that are really good friends of mine that relied on this vendor, first time you get breached, okay, second time, third time, and then and even worse, they're just like, this clearly they're not needed. So that, I think, was a wake-up call for our industry, where we recognize that these workforce productivity-based identity solutions need to be overhauled to come into this next world where we could start to attack back, right, with those identity threats. So I could certainly go on, but I'll stop there.
And another issue is organizations don't have a clear view of the user. Can you expand on the implications of that?
Yeah. Look, in the end, when we think about identity, right, we talked about how identity is really important. When you know a customer so well, I mean, we have to do things like know your customer for anti-money laundering, right? But if we actually take that and really think about it, our job is to establish, build, and maintain trust with our customers. And organizations, they also have to deal with fraud. And so if you think about it, if I really know you as a customer so well, I can know when it's not you, when it's someone bad trying to do something with your account. But if I know you also really well as a customer, could I not serve you better, make things more efficient with mobile apps? And maybe even if there's a safe way of doing it and it's not too creepy, like promote other products to say, hey, did you know we have this service? Because it looks like you might benefit from it because we know you so well. So what Transmit has done that I think is really interesting is, as we've orchestrated a lot of these silos, right? When you open up a bank account, you as Evie gets split into all these different systems, right? So to get a single view of you, you have to orchestrate all this. And that was kind of Transmit's first foray into this world. And when I was a Gartner analyst, that's what put them on my radar. When I started to see how they were solving these big issues. And as time has gone on, we've helped clients, make those identity interactions much more smooth, but also we're looking at fraud. As we talked about earlier, those identity threats, we can't just focus on productivity and making things easier. We have to be very much aware that at any time someone can steal your identity and try and, funnel money to one account or another. And again, if we stick to the mission that we believe in, that's making it, enabling our customers to understand their customers, then we can predict and we can know when there's fraud that's going to happen. and it doesn't get in your way as a customer, but it also protects you at the same time.
We have all these legacy technologies. What's the path forward that you can tell our audience?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So as we mentioned, the culprit for a lot of these identity attacks is actually what Gartner is calling legacy technical debt and technical debt with IAM systems. Every organization, all of our customers, they all have legacy debt. And we can't just rip it out and move to a new solution as much as a lot of providers want them to do that. We have to have a nice path into this new world. And we have to solve these problems now because one, we talked about identity threats, but the next thing that we'll just tease on and touch on that we didn't really cover is cyber resilience, right? So we're here in Singapore, there's a major provider that has had multiple outages, and the culprit is the legacy technical debt from the identity system, which is using technology from almost 30 years ago, right? That phone is not 30 years old, right? And so in order to move on, we have to bridge into this new world where the systems are resilient. So for example, we have cloud. So you should have an active environment where you can deploy, say in Google Cloud and in AWS. And let's just say if Google Cloud went down, you should be able to move over very quickly to that other instance. And if these providers, say in this region we're using this, customers wouldn't even know if there was an outage. And it's really important that, yes, there's security, but as we mentioned, digital identity is really important. This is critical infrastructure. Like you can't bank, you can't do government services, right? And so it's really important that we do this. And the last thing I'll say is we have to, because regulations are coming for cyber resilience, and to rely on 30-year-old technology when it's going to be 2025 soon, we should be thinking about 2030. We can't rely on these old systems anymore. So
We need to be evolving.
Exactly.
It's great to have you at Identity Week for the first time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much.